Hey everybody, it's your girl Shonda B. White. Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another one of my vlogs. I hope that it is hopefully they're inspiring you and empowering you to just be the best person you can and to just learn from some of the things that I've been through as a woman, both single and as a married woman. And speaking of, I don't know if anyone can relate, but I used to be that girl that I would get into a relationship, and I've talked about this before, where I would kind of like change up who I was, and I was kind of like a relationship chameleon because if they were into something in a certain relationship, or if they were into a certain type of music or books or television, I was that girl that would change, based on that relationship. And I was like the in Coming to America when she's like, whatever it is you like I was that girl. So what I would do is I would change who I was, and I found myself losing my identity, and I could feel myself slowly like creeping away from myself because I wasn't doing and being the person that I knew I was called to be, and I wasn't living the life that I wanted to live. So even if I was like, okay, I'm going to vow that I'm not going to have sex in the next relationship, I would go in that next relationship, and if that's what he wanted, even though I knew deep down inside that isn't what I wanted, I would still do it. And so I would justify my actions, by just saying, well, I'm never going to meet anybody if I don't do that. But at the same time, what I realized was that I was decreasing myself in order to make someone else feel better about who they were, and in order to accommodate someone else's life and what they thought they needed and what they wanted. But over the years, I've learned how to love myself more. And obviously, before I met my husband, I spent a lot of alone time, just being by myself and saying, okay, I can't keep going from relationship to relationship. I have to like really get to know me and be comfortable in my own skin and be comfortable with who I am, because what I didn't want to do was continue to keep losing myself in love. And that's something I want to talk about today is like, how do I avoid, or how do you avoid losing yourself? How do you avoid losing yourself in love? Because a lot of times we think we find love and we end up losing ourselves. Whether you're single or you're married, I've seen marriages where people are like, well, I just don't feel like I'm myself anymore, and this is not what I signed up for. And it's like, well, something happened along the way where your expectations of who you thought you were going to be and who you thought, you're supposed to be, or what your marriage is supposed to look like, somehow there was a disconnect somewhere. I remember reading this story a long time ago. It was a few years ago. It might have even been on Oprah or something. But there was a young woman, or not young woman, but a woman probably middle aged, maybe in her or late 40s or so. She just up and left one day and moved across country. She left her husband and her kids and everything. And I was like, what on earth would make a woman just up and leave her husband and kids like with no warning or anything and just basically start a new life? Well, the more I read about it, it was like an article or something. I think it said something about how she felt like she lost herself and she didn't feel like she was the woman that, she was supposed to be, and how she missed out on certain things. And I was like, wow, did it take that long, like for you to get married and then have kids on down the road? Like that was some years invested into that relationship, and then it just took like a split second for her to realize, oh, I'm not who I thought I was supposed to be, or who I thought I was going to be. I know for me, it's easy to judge a situation like that because it's so dramatic. But for me, even in my own relationships in the past, before my husband came along, I was the same way. Unfortunately, when I realized that I lost myself, that was usually when they were breaking up with me, and then it was like they were taking my whole heart and taking everything and my whole power in my being, because I gave it to them, not realizing that I wasn't the person that I thought I was supposed to be. So I want to encourage you with a few tips. I talk about this a little bit in my book as well. It's called Don't Be a Wife to a Boyfriend, if you've never heard of it. 10 lessons I learned when I was single. And it's not like a book where I'm like, this is what you don't do, girl, that don't treat your man like this and do this for your man. And no, it's more about the lessons that I learned. Don't be a wife to boyfriend is just one of 10 lessons that I learned. But I also in that learned that, I have to know who I am. I have to be comfortable with who I am. And you can't lose yourself in love trying to find it. How to avoid losing yourself in love. I'm just going to go through a few points. The first one, always keep God first and foremost, because when you keep him first, you realize who created you and who you are and whose you are. So I realize that I'm a child of God, I'm a child of the King, and I know where ultimately my joy and my life, everything revolves around him, and everything is who I am today, and everything I have comes from him, and it's because of him. And the day I forget that is the day that I give my power to someone else. And I think that my husband or someone else has the power to change who I am or to make me into something that I'm not supposed to be. The second thing is get a life and let him have one too. Okay, this is especially important for married women because, again, I'm married. I've been married for 8 years. But you know what? I tell Eric, listen, go with your boys. Y'all go to the sports bar and like go watch the playoffs, watch the games. He's at the playoffs right now. And sometimes I will go with my ladies. We'll just go out. Like, we don't go clubbing like that. We're too old for all that. But, you know, we'll go to a nice little lounge, catch up, have a girls' night out or a girls' night in. Or sometimes I will just go to Target by myself. Target. I will just go to Target by myself and, you know, just go look or shop. You know, we all need that me time. We all just need a little breather because that lets him know, listen, I'm fine. Like, you know, I'm not possessive and he's not possessive. So do you. And, you know, you got to let each other have your time when it's necessary. The next one is be the woman a man needs, not a needy woman. In other words, no man likes a needy woman. I'm sorry. You know, I used to know this girl who she would always like push these guys away. And I try to explain to her, like, you are coming off as needy. Like, men want to feel needed, like you need them, but they don't want to feel like you're just going to die if they're not there. They want to know that you're going to be able to keep going, that you're going to be able to pick yourself up. If y'all break up, if you're not married, and if you're married, you know, if unfortunately he passes away, they want to know, like, you are going to be okay and that they don't have to be right next to you every waking moment, especially when you're dating. Like, don't be that girl, you know, a few months in, you're like, but I don't want you to go nowhere. Like, why can't we always be together? And why can't I just want you all to myself? It's like, it's one thing to joke about it, but like, if you for real are like that, and you're always crying, worried about like whether or not you're gonna be together and stuff, like, you're acting needy, and that's not attractive. The only thing it's gonna do is push him away. Trust me, I've been there. It's happened. And the next one is don't always succumb to the pressure. The pressure being that people will pressure you to live the life that they think you're supposed to be living. Just like with Eric and myself, they tried to tell us, you know, when are y'all gonna have kids? Yada, yada, yada. But I realized if I had kids based on everyone else's timeline, I would be living their life, not mine. And I would lose myself. And even if with my husband, if I based it on when he wanted to have kids, because he wanted to have kids like that. He didn't really understand the importance of us getting to know each other and the things that, quite honestly and selfishly, I wanted to accomplish for myself and things that I'm trying to work on. So, you know, I kind of held off on that because otherwise you start having kids for the wrong reasons, and kids are a blessing, don't get me wrong, but you end up having resentment towards your husband or towards your significant other because you feel like, oh, I did what you wanted me to do. But it's like, yeah, but it's a partnership. Like, you can't just do things simply because that's what they feel, what other people feel like you should do. Because a lot of people feel like you should get married and have kids in like 2 years. Well, what about people who can't have kids? You know, like, what about people who struggle with that and infertility issues? Like, you can't just put somebody else's life on and somebody else's timetable on to what you can't put that on someone else and make them feel like that they have to do what you want them to do. So I am very aware of that in my marriage, in my relationships, like, I'm not gonna do what you think I should be doing. I'm gonna do what's best for my husband and myself, and at the end of the day, what I think God has called me to do. And then, or two more, squeeze in some me time. So I kind of talked about that a little bit in terms of, you know, let him have his space. You have your space, squeeze in some me time, especially as mothers, because mothers, you all work tirelessly hard and you put forth all your effort. You work all the time. And single fathers, there's some single fathers out there. There's some dads who are maybe stay-at-home dads, you're married, whatever. But I know especially the job of a mother is like never ending. So make that time. Make sure you get a babysitter. Like, if you live close enough to me, I'll offer to babysit. It's good practice for me. for when, we do have children. But carve out some me time so you're not so overwhelmed all the time. Of course, you're gonna be overwhelmed because you're a mother, and that's just a part of being a mother. But try to carve out some time for you, because it's hard to fill up someone else's cup if you can't fill up your own cup. So even as ladies, like, if you're single and you don't have children, like, this is your time to do you. This is time for you to be selfish and to make yourself a priority, which is another chapter that I talk about in the book, but that's a whole other story. And the last one, be willing to compromise as long as it doesn't compromise who you are. At the end of the day, whoever is meant to love you for the rest of your life or for this season, they're meant to love you for who you are and not who they want you to be. So you shouldn't have to feel like you got to compromise your morals and your values and your standards for someone else. You should be able to be okay with yourself. Like with my husband, I can be me, but I also know that he respects and he values our relationship. He values my morals and standards, and we share those together. So there's no, like, we're not unequally yoked. So if I believe one thing, he's not believing something separate. But he makes me feel comfortable with being who I am, and I'm comfortable in my own skin. Because the moment you start to feel like you're not, and you feel like you're compromising who you are for someone else, you will really start to feel lost. And one day you're going to wake up and you're going to feel like, who am I? Who is this person? And who have I, become over these last few years because I didn't stay true to myself?